Fred and I continued living down there in East Texas, and Fred got sent to Wichita Falls for a little while. We were there a little while. Our oldest daughter was born, and Fred got to, well, then we moved. We moved to Oklahoma City. We got sent back to Oklahoma City, and we rented a little duplex there. And Fred kept working for the British American, but he was also talking to people and preaching to people about the Lord. And there were complaints that got to his boss. And his boss told him, "You'll have to quit preaching or quit working for us." So he retired. He just quit. And then we were expecting Ronald, our second child, our first son. And I went back down to Texas, to Overton, to wait for his birth, to have my doctor. Dr. Heiligman was a Jewish doctor that was a friend of my dad's, and I had Ronnie, and Fred got a job with Fred was employed by the state by a good friend just to give him work. Don McBride would be remembered maybe by someone hearing me. He was the right-hand man of Robert S. Kerr. And when Robert Kerr went to Washington, Don went with him. But they were real good friends of ours. And Fred worked at the Capitol for, the first job he had was just a filing job. And he got paid the same salary that he got when he was jerking soda in high school at the drugstore. And it was pretty slim getting by on what Fred was bringing home. But finally he got on an engineering job with the state, and my dad couldn't stand thinking about us paying rent for an apartment. So he went to a bank in Oklahoma City. He and my mother came up, and we were looking for a house, and we didn't find a house. But he went to the bank and put enough money in for us, a down payment. And finally we found a little house over on North Pennsylvania and moved in it. We had our third child was born, and Fred was called to active duty. He had been in ROTC at OU, and he was called to active duty. And he was gone in just a few days. And I had 3 children. I had 2 cases of chicken pox, and Mary was just a tiny baby. And I was left in Oklahoma City, 250 miles from my folks and 150 from his folks, with 6 kids and him gone. That was rugged. We bought this before Fred left for the Army, though. We found this little house. I already said that, I think. We found this little house on North Pennsylvania in the west part of the city. And we settled in there, and when Fred left, we rented the house to the owner of the Oldsmobile garage in Oklahoma City, and they lived in our house all the time Fred was in service. And I paid I paid for the house out of Fred's salary. So when he got discharged, we had a home paid for. But Fred, we moved to Carbondale, Illinois. Before we moved, though, Fred, let's see now, wait just a minute, where am I? Fred was at the Proving Ground in Maryland at first. And then he went to Illinois, and they moved us up there, and we were supposed to be there at the Proving Ground, living on the area where they had a big group of houses, and it was a munitions plant, and we were supposed to be there for the duration. Well, we were there less than a year, and they lowered the age for active duty, and Fred was caught in that group, and he had to report for active duty, which took him to, he went to, first he was up in Missouri a while, and that's when he was in Maryland to the Proving Ground. And after we were at Carbondale that 9 months, and he got had to report for active duty, we decided I'd better go back to Texas. And he was already scheduled to go to California to the desert training. So we had a little green 2-door Ford, and Fred took off to his service, and I got a girl to help me pack up all that the little green Ford would take, and the military moved the rest of our furniture and stuff to Texas. But the takeoff from Illinois to Texas was quite a thing for me. We had intestinal flu. I was sick, and the kids were ailing, and we loaded up the little green Ford and took off for East Texas. And that day I drove 673 miles. I've never forgotten the distance. And I had the two little girls. I had the two girls up on the load in the back seat, and I put Ronnie in the front seat with me, and I headed for Texas. Ruth got sick and threw up on...
Not Ruth.
No, Mary. Mary got sick and threw up on Ronnie. And I thought, oh my, what now? So I looked around, and there was a farmhouse with a long driveway, and I thought, well, I'll go into this farmhouse and see what I can get. And I went in, and the lady gave me a pan of water, and I cleaned Ronnie up. And we got going again. We stopped down in Arkansas and tried to eat a little bit, but nobody could stomach food. So we drove clear across Arkansas and drove into Mom and Dad's little house out in the country, and they weren't at home. They never went anywhere, but that night they were gone. But we went in and unloaded a little bit. It wasn't very long till they came, and of course they knew that we were coming, but I'm surprised that they left the house. They probably didn't know exactly when we were going to be there. But anyway, we walked around and talked a little bit, and I heard Dad say, "Mom, she's pregnant again." And so that was the beginning for Jenny. And Fred was out in the desert training in California when Jenny was born.